Welcome to another episode of the Christian Business Incubator podcast. I'm your co-host, Ken Freire, and today I have my amazing co-host, El Jefe, Paul Baco.
El Jefe!
Hey!
Hey!
I'm going to try to come up with a new title for you every single time we do this podcast. Right?
Well, I'm glad I don't have to say anything in Spanish. Like, I get the boss, but beyond that, it's Mi amo Pablo and Donde está el baño. So thanks for switching back to English.
No problem.
Because you hit me up the one time in the meeting last week, you started talking the whole thing in Spanish. Funnily enough, my daughter in 11th grade, funnily, I don't even know if that's a word, she's taking Spanish.
Made up a new word. Yeah.
Check this out. You're going to love this. Full immersion. The teacher doesn't even talk in English. So she's there and she's like, and everybody else is in there like, no,
I don't even know how to say her numbers or anything.
No, nothing. She just gets up and starts going at it. I'm like, holy smokes. So thank you for not doing that here on the podcast, Ken. I appreciate that.
Yeah, perfect. I won't do that. We're not translating this to Spanish yet.
Okay.
Well, today, man, we are talking about something that you have really coined is the 3 M's, right? We talk about model, mentorship, and mindset. Those are like the 3 M's that you think about for a successful business to function. Today, we're going to talk about the first one, which is a model. Why, Paul, in your view, is a simple business model important for Christian entrepreneurs as they're starting out their business?
Really good question. And I've thought deeply about this for my entire career. I've analyzed over 150 different business models. I've had over 10. Some of them were putsy, some of them were shorter, longer. But I think the key principle to understand when we talk about this is this idea of when you pick up one end of the stick, you automatically pick up the other end of the stick. And what I mean by that is I had a business model, digital agency that provided new patient acquisition for dentists. Okay? Sounds great, right?
Yeah, sounds easy.
Recurring income, affordability. However, the other side of that was the communication with them, managing the team to get the work done. And there was all these things that I was blind to when I started because I was in someone else's marketing funnel, right? Like they highlighted all the good stuff. But we didn't see any of the downside.
Yeah.
Another example is e-commerce. Like we had a very successful e-commerce brand, and sounds great again, right? You run ads and outsource it all, drop ship it all, and then boom, on the other side is revenue. Okay. Well, what we didn't see was the constriction of the advertising platforms. We didn't see the supply chain issues. We didn't see the erosion of our profit margins. And it's really important to, as Wayne Gretzky said, skate to where the puck is going. So what does that mean for a Christian entrepreneur? Well, I think it means a couple things as it relates to business model. We don't want a business that owns us. We want to own the business. The Bible calls that headship. Be above only, never beneath, blessed coming in, blessed coming out. You're the head, you're not the tail. I see so many business owners, Christian, non-Christian alike, they're just running around like chickens with their head cut off because the business is running them. So what is involved then is we have to have what I like to call an elegant business model, something that is clean to run. But as a Christian, I also believe we have to have a business model that taps into the unique gifts and talents that the Lord has blessed us with. So let me say it differently. An e-commerce business is a very introverted type of business. And so I had a partner in one of my businesses who was an extrovert.
Yeah.
And so when we partnered up, he had a very difficult time triangulating to what that would be like for him because he was so used to extroversion. He was in outside sales before, and now he's stuck working in his office. So I'm like, hey, man, Go out and work at Starbucks. Like, take some time off, go to the gym. And I had to give him all this coaching to calibrate that. Or conversely, if you try to put an introvert into an extrovert oriented business model, they're just not going to be successful. Why? Because they're not honoring God.
Yeah.
They're probably chasing shiny objects, and they're the subject of someone else's marketing funnel. So step one in business model selection and identification and filtration is, what are my strengths? Because we can always get farther sharpening our strengths than trying to sharpen our weaknesses. In Proverbs, the Lord talks about a empty stable stays clean. When there are no oxen, it's clean. And I remember my first mentor, who I've talked about before, Chris, he sat down one time after church. He had his Bible, popped it open, had me read it. He's like, "What do you think that means?" I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm not a farmer. Long story short, he said, "Paul, when you have oxen," and forgive my language, I'll beat myself out, but he says, when you have oxen, you have beep.
Yeah.
Oxen equals poop, right?
Yeah.
And so we'll always get farther deploying the biblical principle of who, not me, or who, not how. Moses talked about his staff. The initial disciples and apostles, they're like, man, it's stupid of us to be tending to feeding when we have other things of more importance. So they basically appointed leaders. So we can't even think along those lines until we have that first tidbit of clarity on, what am I good at?
Yeah.
What skills and talents did the Lord give me? And then honor them. And then when we identify the things that we can do, it's sometimes glaringly obvious of, holy smokes, man, I stink at all these other things. And that's where people get overwhelmed, or they get stuck in fear and inaction, and they're just not able to move through that. But the way the Bible talks about solving that is, again, who, not me, who, not how, right? There's people that have solved all sorts of problems. So business model selection is part internal calibration. What are my gifts? What are my talents? What are my strengths? Another way to look at that is, what do I love doing? Or who do I love working with? Who do I love serving?
Yeah.
Those are all ways to kind of unpack that. But then the other piece is the practicality of, great, I love to eat burritos in my hammock. You know, I can't make money doing that. So we have to have that grounded in truth and reality of, will this serve the market? But then also the mechanics of the business. Like, how can we simplify that? Do we need to have people who have rocket science degrees on our team? Or can we do like what McDonald's did and build a multi-billion-dollar business off of teenagers, which is incredibly brilliant. And then the other part of it are the fundamentals of ticket size, right? If you're in the screw or nut and bolt business, you're going to have to sell 1 million units to make any money, because you make like 1 penny per unit. And that's what we ran into with e-commerce. We'd have to sell thousands of units a day, a week, to make any money. Next is it recurring? Is it residual? Is it work once and get paid over and over and over again? And that can be done through business systems. That can also be done through assets. And my fundamental belief in architecture of a business model is, we want something that's going to create a lot of cash and cash flow that we can then redeploy into the acquisition of cash flow producing assets. So then we can earn our, what I like to think of as forever freedom. So business model selection is incredibly important. And then the last piece is, how long does it take to harvest? There's some business models out there you got to work on for a year before you have any traction. And there's others that you work on for a day, right? Because we want to test drive. We want to be like, hey, is this for me? Is this not? Or at least immerse ourselves in the pros and cons so that we can make a quality decision. Why? Because our most valuable resource is time. We can get more money. Sometimes we can get more health. There's certain people that can, of course, but nobody can get more time. And a multi-billionaire and a ditch digger have the same 24/7, 365. The difference is in how they think, which is another M we'll talk about at a different time. But I'll stop now.
Yeah, no, I love that. And going back to, the harvest time, I could give a great example where I remember I thought I was going to start a blog, right, to try to make some passive income off of it, but it was going to take 2 or 3 years. So I started writing, and then I'm like, back up. This is too much.
Yep.
And I went into real estate, and I started buying real estate properties. And I'm like, oh, it was a large learning curve. But once I started to learn it, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like it's way more passive. It's a lot faster. It's monthly. It's reoccurring. And if you have the
You don't need to be
systems
an
and the people
Einstein.
set up, yeah, yeah, you don't. You just need to work hard, right? And I'm like, got it. I can do that, right?
Not that I'm saying you're not an Einstein. That wasn't what I was going after.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I hear that, Hefe. Cool.
I was thinking saying to Heifer, "Hey, dude, I know I have a little bit improvement, but I've been using my tonal every day, man. I'm pumping it. We'll get there."
That's what I'm talking about.
Heifer,
All right.
Heifer,
So there are three
cow.
M's. Oh, there are three M's, Heifer. And we talked about model. Oh, boy. People are going to be like, these guys are clowns. But in the next
man,
episode,
burden is easy. The yoke is light, baby. It should be fun. If we're not having fun, we're not. We enter like, what's the best medicine? Laughter, right? That's the other thing. Is if you have so the best mechanics, and I don't mean to cut you off. I know you're rapping, but this is I think going to be helpful as it relates to business model. The best mechanics. What color do the best mechanics paint their floors? You probably know the answer.
I want to say black, but that'd be wrong.
Okay, you don't know the answer. That's cool. The best mechanics paint their floor white.
Yeah.
So they can see the drips. What's the difference between a race car and a sedan? The race car has less, right? So unfortunately, in our world of entrepreneurship and digital entrepreneurship and online entrepreneurship, we got people building just ridiculous things that you have to have a NASA level engineering degree to understand, like these funnel mechanisms and this crazy stuff. It's just not necessary. So we want something simple, something repeatable, something consistent, something predictable. And in my opinion, one of the most important things is scalable, because I'll ask the audience, what was Jesus' very first miracle?
Oh,
water
yeah.
into wine, which is a miracle of velocity. So when we're in position, tapping into the source under the leadership of the Holy Spirit, one of the blessings we have access to is velocity. But complex fails, simple scales.
Yeah.
So we want to have something that's relatively simple, and we want to abide by the biblical principle of first the blade, then the ear, then the full corn in the ear. So if somebody's trying to start some massive undertaking, I can tell you it's not God. And I'll end on this, Ken. There's a story that Andrew Womack shares about one of his Charis Bible students who comes to him with this proposal about how to take a burned, some type of a building and convert it into a hotel or student housing for the members of that community.
Yeah.
And so Andrew flipped through it, and he looked, and he goes, "Let me ask you something. What have you ever done one of these projects before?" And it was like a couple $1 million project, so it was a big deal. And he was trying to raise money. He was trying to get Andrew to fund it. And the guy's like, "Nope." He was, "Okay, what kind of a background do you have?" Kid's like, "What do you mean background?" He goes, "Like, what kind of jobs do you have?" And the kid's like, I've never had a job before." He goes, "Okay." He goes, "This is not from God." Kid's like, "Oh, devil!
How dare you break the dream, right?
Who do you think you are?" And Andrew just I guess patiently let him communicate. He's like, "Look, I can tell you this isn't from God, because the biblical principle, first the blade, then the ear, then the full corn in the ear."
Yeah.
Right? So going from zero to full corn, not God. So when it comes to the business model, keep it simple. Make sure you're tapping into your skills, and make sure you're following the leading of the Holy Spirit, not the leading of a ClickFunnels marketing genius. And you'll be in good shape.
That's great. And even with the Andrew Womack story, right? Let's just say that young man, it was from God. It might not be for right now, right? It might be something for the future, where now you got to be like, hey, you actually need someone to walk you through. How do you get there? But don't start going for the $1 million project. You need to go figure out real estate first. You need to go figure out how to just flip one house.
Well, that's what Andrew told him. He's like, "Dude, you need to figure out how to have a job." He goes, "Go get a job, do good with that, do excellent with that, and then come back and we'll talk."
Yeah. Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, that will be a great segue for the next two M's that we're going to talk about in the podcast. It's going to be the mindset and the mentorship. So stay tuned for that. And if you want to hear more about this, check out ChristianEntrepreneur Inc.com. Hope you have a great day and God bless.